Okay, so we've got our buttons, and I've got them all designed right here, and you can kind of see them. And I think the most important thing that you want to do right away is you want to take your slice selection tool and just make sure each slice or each button is basically the same size. Because remember, that way we are able to control our buttons with a class. If we're going to do rollovers, we need to do rollovers in such a way so that the button is not a background image. Now, that's not to say that you can't make the button a background image and do a rollover. You actually can, but then it requires some more programming that you would have to do on your own by hand. I've done it. It's not hard, but we're not going to go to that level with this assignment. So the important thing is that you realize that your buttons are not going to be background images anymore, not in these divs. We're going to place them right in the divs, which means it's very important that the div and the button are the same size, because, or that the div is even a little bit bigger than the button, just so that everything kind of goes in correctly. So I'm just going to take a look here. My width is 40, my height is 58. Now, the reason why this is off a little bit is because I actually built in like a little buffer area here. If I wanted this div to actually fit the whole thing, I should probably make them as tall as my my menu bar div here, which means that they would be 83. But we should be able to do it with them just being 58. So I'm just going to take a look, make sure each one's 40 by 58. And they are. So I did this right. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check and see if I've got rollover and regular buttons. Now, when you create your rollovers and regulars, what I basically did is I took all my buttons, I made them the way I wanted, then I grouped them into a group in Photoshop here, and then what I did is I created a duplicate group called the rollovers. And if I open this up, you'll see that I have all the button layers are here, different icons are here, different shadow effects and highlights because I painted them to make them look round and so on and so forth. So then in my rollover state, they just turn to blue. And that's it. It's pretty simple, but it's nice because it will actually give the viewer that interactive experience as they put the cursor over the buttons. Again, another thing is, I think another reason why a lot of people are kind of going out of this, another reason why a lot of people are going away from buttons, I think, as I was talking about a little bit earlier, is also remember the whole iPad, iPhone, Android type phenomena that's happening right now is transforming the way the internet is because we won't have rollovers. So what I'm teaching you here is important. I want you to learn it, and yet at the same time I want you to realize this is changing rapidly, and rollovers themselves are somewhat going away because with a touchscreen interface, you don't have a mouse cursor anymore to actually roll over your button. So if your buttons, you want your button to be able to stand alone and have a rollover. It's kind of the way it's working right now. So the rollovers aren't gone. It's just if you have a rollover, you need to be okay with the fact that it doesn't show up. So part of that would be you would not want to design a button that's completely invisible or very, very, very faint, so that the person would find it by, oh, I put the cursor over it and all of a sudden it pops in. That might sound like a really cool idea to you, but then somebody with an iPad is going to look at your website, not know where the buttons are, not have that rollover, interactivity, and then they're just going to hit the back button and go somewhere else. So this is a really important thing that you guys kind of start thinking about when it comes to web, is how well are websites designed for these mobile platforms, mobile Safari, the Android browser, and that sort of thing. So I've got all my slices are good, and I know what my divs are going to be. They're going to be 40 by 58. So I can even go into Dreamweaver right now. Whoops, wrong website here. Let's just go to that really quickly. 40 by 58. And I could start to put them in here if I wanted to. So I'm going to... so right here, here's my navigation div right there. So I'm going to highlight that. And actually, now that I know that I'm there, I'm going to insert a new div. And this time, remember, we're going to use a class. So I'll just call it button. Click new CSS rule. Click OK. And I want, was it 40 by 58? And I want them all to line up in a row. So what do? Remember this from last week? I set my something to left. I hear it. What was it? The float. Yes, I need to set the float to left. So that way they'll line up in a row. If I don't set the float to left, they're going to want to go vertically. So that's one big thing about divs, okay? So we're just going to keep on hitting that. For right now, I'm not going to do anything with margins and padding. I'm just going to see how this all starts to come together, and then I'll play with the margins most likely, not the padding. So I'm going to click OK and click OK. So now I've got a div here, and I had some interesting... What's interesting is I still have... I thought it would replace the text. My bad. And it didn't. But so here's the button div that I've got right there. And now I've highlighted it, and I can create a whole series of them. And they can each have different IDs if you wanted them to. But I'm going to go down here to Photoshop, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buttons. So I'm just going to go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to hit over 1, and I'm going to insert a new div, and we're just going to say class button. I'm not going to hit new CSS rule. I'm just going to click OK. And I can delete the text that goes in there, highlight it, over button, insert another one, class button, click OK. Delete the text because it's really messing things up. Right arrow over. You get the idea. Whoops, I don't want new CSS rule. OK. Let's see, that's 4. 5. 6, and lastly 7. Delete the text out of there. So now I've got these 7 buttons, and they're basically all just waiting. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and now I got to do a couple of things. First off, I need to check my names of my divs, and I need to turn off all my backgrounds. So I'm just going to make them completely transparent in this case, and I don't need anything. I can just turn everything off. So now I'm just going to take a look here, and we're going to go through here. Oh, look at the name of the slice. It's roll. So I've done this before. So we're gonna replace it with reg. So I'm gonna copy that, and we'll go back to roll in a minute. And I'm just going to paste reg for regular at the end of each slice. And this is a really important thing, because what you're going to do essentially is save out 2 versions of your button. So they have to have 2 different names. That makes sense, right? Because if they only have one name, when you save the second set, it's going to save right over top of the first set. We don't want that. So now I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to select all 7 of my buttons, and the rest should probably be pretty self-explanatory here for this next process. Save for web and devices. Now, this is one thing I don't like about Photoshop. I forgot this. I selected all 7 of my buttons. It doesn't select all of them in here, so I have to go back in and reselect all 7. It's rather annoying. So I've got all 7 selected. Make sure the PNG is set, hit the Save button, make sure I'm in the right place. I don't click on the Images folder, right? I've already had several people do that. Make sure down here, Images Only, Selected Slices Only, Save. Now, if I go into Dreamweaver now, and I open up my Images folder, let's actually just show this in the Finder really quickly. You should be able to see I've got a button now. Design button, reg, film button, reg, info button, reg. So I've got all these buttons that are regs, _reg. So now I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to turn on my rollover state, okay, where they're going to be slightly bluish. Now I'm going to have to go back in and I'm going to have to change that from reg to roll. So this is the rollover state. Because remember, whatever you name the slice is what the Photoshop will name the image. So copy and paste. Whoops, there we go. Make sure I don't make any mistakes. I'm copying and pasting. This helps a lot. I mean, if you add an extra R in there or something like that, it's no big deal. Now I'm going to go back for Save for Web and Devices. Make sure each one of my buttons is clicked. And I'm going to click the Save button and save again. Now, right there, if it gives you an error saying, do you want to replace a certain file, you need to stop. You probably didn't rename one of your slices. Look at that name very carefully. Unless this is your second time through and on purpose you are replacing some of your images, in which case you're fine. Okay? If I made a change in these and then I wanted to replace them with the new change, then I would want to replace them. But you want to be careful about that, okay? So now I go into Dreamweaver. And again, if I go back to the Reveal and Finder, now take a look. You'll see I've got two sets of each button. Design button reg, design button roll. Really easy, okay? Really easy. And now, if I go back to Dreamweaver, if they haven't popped up, I hit the little refresh button there. Oh, there they go. And now I've got all the buttons that are in my Images folder. And you can kind of see them. They're all in there. So I'm going to close this because I don't really need it. Now I'm going to go inside the first div here. Make sure you're inside the div. And you don't want to be inside the nav div, so this will be interesting to see which one I'm in. I mean, if I wanted to, what I'll do is I'll just go to the code, and I can see where the cursor is. Oh, see, I'm outside of the button right there, so I want to be inside the button. See the cursor's on the outside? That's rather annoying. There we go. I guess you got to double click up in the top left-hand corner. And now I can see in the code my cursor is right there in between the two div tags. So you may have to experiment a little bit with that. I recommend hitting split and then just looking for the cursor and you'll see where you are. And you really need to be between the div tag here and the slash div represents the end of that button div. That's important for you to be in there. Okay? So now I'm going to insert an image here, and I'm going to insert a rollover image. Before I do that, I'm going to turn this off. Just go here so we can see better. Now I'm going to go to rollover image. It's going to pop up a window. My first one, let me see, I've forgotten already, okay, is the teaching one. So I'm going to call this teaching. And now I'm just going to go to my original image, and I'm going to go I'm going to choose the reg for the original, and the rollover for the rollover image. Alternate text. Teaching. When clicked, where do you want it to go? I can say I want it to go to teaching. Oops, this helps if I spell it right. .html. Guess what? That page doesn't exist yet, but I know I'm going to create it. And if I'm smart, I'll create it the same name. If I don't, then this button's not going to go to the right place, right? Okay, so that's a double-edged sword, but you can do that. Click OK. And there it is. So now I'm going to Double click into that div. Let's just see, am I really in there? Yes, I am. Now, here's what I want, another thing I want you to see. And this is what's really cool. See all this here? When I inserted that rollover image, this is all the JavaScript code that you would have to write by hand if you wanted to do this by yourself without Dreamweaver. Okay? So Dreamweaver puts all that in there. And then here, you can see, here's the function here, on mouse over and on mouse out, swap image restore, which is the function right here that you've got in JavaScript. So it can get pretty complicated, obviously, if you wanted to do this by yourself. But guess what? Dreamweaver does it for you. Okay, so let's go back to the design here. So I'm going to go into that button div, and I'm going to insert my rollover image again. Whoops, what's my second one now? Photography. Choose my original image as photo button reg and photo button roll. Alternate text. When clicked. There we go. Look at that. So I'm just going to do two more here. How about that? So I'm going to select this, double click in the top left-hand corner, insert my rollover image. Let's see what's next here. Design. I'm not going to do all the extra text and stuff like that. I'm not going to play. You guys can figure that out later, all right? I mean, I've already done it. So we'll just do one more, just so that you get an idea. Now, what's the next one? Metals. Okay. Original image. Click OK. All right. So now I've got these 3 or 4 divs in there. Let's save this, and I'm going to now preview in Safari. And look at that. Pretty cool, huh? Just that easy. Now, you know, I think they're a little too close, right? I think they're a little too close together. I'd like to space them out a little bit. Maybe I'd like some text in between them. There's all sorts of things that you can do. Excuse me. But the nice thing is, because I have them in a class div, CSS styles, there's my class buttons. I can take my box and I can do a left and right margin of, say, 10 pixels. And now it's going to spread them all out. See? Just like that. Gives them a little bit more space. How cool is that? I can do text in between them. I could insert a div in between and put, you know, put the word in there. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that you can do. The reason why I didn't do a top margin is because if I do a top margin, see how it pushes them down? Now that looks kind of stupid, right? So we don't want to do that. We want no margin on the top. If I wanted to, I could do more margin on the right than on the left, or there's just a ton of stuff that you can play with, and because it's a class, you can have each when you make a change, they all change. Now, you can also give each one an ID if you wanted to. So even though they have a class, I can also go in and give them an ID. So I can call this teaching button. And then if I wanted to, I could have teaching button have some of its own unique principles in CSS. So if I hit return on that, then if I go back over here to my CSS, I should see. No, it's not. It's not showing up here, but it should. Well, it probably would after I saved and closed and opened again. Yeah, see, it gave it an ID. So theoretically, you could then add more CSS for an individual div if you wanted to. So just because you have a class doesn't mean you can't add an ID to each individual button. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. In this case, you probably wouldn't, but there are some options, and I have done that where I've had an ID over top of a class, and it does work. So don't be afraid to do that. Are there any questions about the rollovers? It's really simple. Dreamweaver does most of the work for you. In review, in Photoshop, you have to create 2 sets of your buttons. You have to create a rollover set and a regular set. Okay, so that's number 1. There has to be 2 sets, a rollover set and a regular set. I really recommend grouping them like this so you can just turn them on and off really easily and you don't have to worry about going through a million layers. Okay, so if you do the grouping right, that becomes really easy. Number 2, make sure your slices are all the same size, and make sure that they're named roll or reg at the end so that when you save for web, those images have a specific designation. Don't do 1 or 2. Don't do anything. Roll or reg or on and off. Or over and off, like over, off, okay? One of those 3 things. That way you know which buttons are which. And make sure that when you save out the second set, you change the slice name in between so that you're not saving over top of the first set. If you've saved twice and you've only got 1 set of buttons, and now all of a sudden your regulars are your rolls, that means that you didn't change the name of the slice. Okay? And then finally, when you go into Dreamweaver, you created the divs, you double-click in the top left-hand corner of the div to get in there, and then you go to the Insert menu, you click this little arrow, and you insert a rollover image. And once you do that, it'll ask you some questions, and then Dreamweaver does all the work with the script, the JavaScript and everything like that that's required for a rollover image. Does this make sense? It's pretty cool. It's nice that Dreamweaver does all that for you because, you know, this stuff is kind of hard to do. I don't want to teach you that. All right, that's it.